Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today is going to be a little bit of a different video and it's going to be a informational questionnaire, I guess, more of an interview with the ever so legendary and famous Dan the Man, Dan Vang, who is, in my perspective, one of the top Digimon players that is in the game currently because he has such an amazing track record on how he tops events so consistently. So I thought it would be really interesting to pick his brain about how he's able to top consistently and try to relay that information to you guys. So, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about some of your amazing accomplishments?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Dan Vang here. Part of Guy Force Gaming. Consistently topping here and there. I don't. I just have a good time. Honestly, I do practice a lot, and I guess I'm quote unquote known for just practicing with Imperial a lot and just adjusting it as the meta goes on and trying to see how to tweak it forward. I won the first BT5 regional. I think it was Top Cut. And then I won the last BT5 regional, which I think was Core TCG, and then I won last week's regional, which was Carta Magica, I believe. Those are my official Bandai wins that I know of. I remember.
All right, and then with just a whole bunch of other like topping events, you have built yourself up quite a resume when it comes to, well, you being a very successful player in the game. So, starting off with some of the questions, if there were one aspect of Digimon you always wanted to improve on, what would it be?
Probably deck building. I think for me, I don't have that whole like talent of being like, oh, this deck is great. I don't need to adjust it too much. Usually I have to do a lot of trial and error. I'll go like, oh, this card might be good, and then I play it and test it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe don't. It's not needed or less of a ratio for it. A lot of my honestly successful deck ideas either literally come from like bouncing ideas off the team, bouncing ideas off like Ethan and some others, and like straight Jessmon build is just from Izzy Cruz from DA and the boys, honestly.
And then what would you say your strongest skill would be when it comes to the Digimon TCG?
I think maybe just being patient and trying not to get tilted. I think early on, sometimes, you're like, if you made a misplay or not, you're like, oh no, and then you get super tilted. But I think so far I've become more patient and understanding, especially even if I lose and make a mistake. I'm like, all right, like figure out why so we can learn from this and not just get straight tilted. And then you're like, all right, I'm throwing the game, right? I think that's probably my strongest skill at the moment.
And then what skills do you think are really important that help you top consistently on top of just being calm and cool and having a level head throughout your matches?
I think learning the outs to every deck, like you don't have to play every deck, right? But you got to learn the outs to each deck, like and what they can play and what they might be able to play. Um, I think a good, I mean, in past formats, not in this format per se. Sometimes, depending on what your deck is, like passing to like a security when playing like a security player, right? Give passing them to three sometimes isn't so bad because it's more of a reactive deck than a proactive deck. So maybe you swing, some of your guys die from their security checks, and then you're like, "Ooh, I don't really want to play like this guy that's gonna die anyway." And passing them to three isn't the end of the world, especially in past formats. From my experience, BT6 format, I'm still learning that matchup.
And then how do you personally grow as a player? Like, tell us a bit about your journey on how you got to where you are and how you got to evolve into being one of the best Digimon players currently in the game.
I appreciate that. I think a lot of people are good. I wouldn't say I'm one of the best, maybe just one of the luckier ones. Um, but I think just growing is learning and playing with anybody who wants to learn and play as well kind of helps, like a newer player, more well-seasoned player, people who make like jank decks, because there's different plays that could still happen in this game, right? Where six sets in, still people can still make random decks where you're like, oh, like I didn't think about that. Like I could still get beat by like I don't know, like a Diaboromon deck that's not exactly tier one, but still able to put in work if they can see some pieces, right? Um, I think just me growing is just talking to a lot of more well-seasoned players as well. Just communicating, bouncing ideas, playing random games with different ideas. I think just surrounding yourself with individuals who are also aware and be like, and will challenge you too, right? Not just agreeing all the time. I think Tyler said that one time too. Like, you don't want it to be an echo chamber. You want it to be. You want to grow by being challenged. I think that comes with the territory of just playing with different people or just saying like, hey, maybe I should use this, and they're like, maybe not. Then you going to see if you can try that.
And then you mentioned luck before. So I personally
Hmm.
don't think that, well, luck is always going to be a factor in Digimon.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of how the game is, whether it's top decks, matchups, what you
Mhm.
draw into, what your security is, etc. So luck is obviously a huge aspect of the game. But I personally think there's a lot that you could do to minimize or reduce the luck. And I think
Mhm.
uh, with that type of risk or luck mitigation that allows you to have repeated success. How big do you think that luck is a factor when it comes to your success in the Digimon card game?
I think me personally, luck is a good factor in it. Just sometimes you top deck the piece you're missing, or you end up just having like a way to just swing into their security, and then you think it's gonna be busted, but it ends up not being anything. Luck will always be a factor, as you can tell too, just because of the RNG nature of the game. There's no mulligans, so there's certain things where you're like, okay, I'm stuck with this hand, I got to play it out. But I think that's where the skill comes into play, right? Trying to know if you should slap down the six cost monster instead of just passing for them to go to three, and then maybe them trying to pass you some memory back. I think that's where the skill comes into play. But luck, I just think it's a bigger factor for me personally, um, regarding the game.
So I don't know exactly your history with other TCGs. If this is your first, if this is your fifth, I don't necessarily know that. So I was wondering, like, what other TCGs you've played and what other skills translated from those TCGs that helped you in your success.
Oh, for sure. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Then I took a break around like the Synchro era, and then I started again like near the end of the Pendulum era. So that is a lot of learning, like understanding different decks and what they can do. I think, especially because that game, everything has like a paragraph of text per card. So you're really learning the ins and outs of opposing decks, even if you're not playing them ever. And then I used to play Dragon Ball Super, which obviously another Bandai game, where it kind of helps you learn different strategies, trying to predict what opponents could do. In both those games I mentioned, your opponent is able to play on your turn, like whether it's a hand trap or a counter play, essentially. So it's kind of you trying to figure out how do I counter this if they have it. Digimon, at least they can't play on your turn, so you really have to think about, will they get that level six they need, or will they get like that option card they need to win the game. So just trying to think multiple steps ahead and trying to see if you can predict that and have an actual answer to that. Otherwise, maybe out of luck at that point.
Right, that's very well put. One other thing is like I noticed this is a pattern that I generally get into is I like to define different types of play lines as macro and micro. So macro
Mm-hmm.
is the
Mm-hmm.
actual act of playing a card, and a micro is the actual act of what you do with the card. So
Yeah.
that's just like my personal thing on what I try to remember on how I can improve is looking at decks macros and micros and try to, like you said, predict and guess what they're going to be doing and try to have answers for that. So, what other
Yes.
pieces of advice would you give other players to help them learn and improve to be, well, better players?
I think pick a deck that you despise and play against it. Whether it's Security, Rookie Rush, Justmon, what else? Maybe Gabubont. And learn those matches and see how you can get better at playing them. See if, like you said, the micro and macro transactions and interactions in the deck. Like, all right, Gabubon's playing against a security player. Should I, go wide and start swinging? Have they played a Gewalt yet? Have they not? That kind of gives you an indication of what options they still have, what options they can play, right? Because if you're gonna go wide and you haven't seen a Gewalt or Ultimate Flare, chances are they're probably gonna play at least one by now, to punish you for going wide. Or is it better to just pass? Keep your I guess quote unquote good BT6 Gabumon and raising until you're ready to pop off. Just one of those kind of interactions and learning, understanding. Um, how to play against each deck. And, I'm sure everyone in this game has a deck that they really, really despise or don't want to play against, right? The only way you get better is playing against the deck you despise and see how you can improve and what strategies can change it up. And that may even come into play like, oh, maybe I should change my deck. Not like entirely, but maybe like a couple of cards to kind of help me have a better matchup against a certain deck or two.
Right. One of my other friends, he is one of the best TCG players in a broad sense that I can humanly possibly think of. I'm not going to go too deep into his identity because I didn't get his approval for that, but I digress. But I was talking with him, and one of the sentiments that he was conveying or trying to convey to me is that he mentions the concept of blaming yourself as much as possible. So when he said that, I took that as trying to critically think about how things could have gone differently to make even the worst matchups slightly better in your favor, which is something you were just touching up upon. He also mentions a little bit about risk mitigation and risk management, on top of more critical thinking and, in my perspective, how players could make things easier or harder on themselves depending on how they're playing. So, in some of my streams, I notice, or I don't know if anyone notices, if anyone actually watches my streams when I do big events, post games, I'll actually do those breakdowns where, oh, if I would have
Mm-hmm.
done this differently, this outcome probably could have happened, and that would have led to me being more successful as a player. I think that's a very important skill to have, and I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that concept of basically failing fast, failing often, and think about how you yourself are impacting how the game's flow is progressing.
Yeah, I think, the concept everyone has I guess their own concept of how they can improve, right? Blaming yourself. I mean, I definitely did that a couple times. I think at this point it's more I've come to this point where I'm just like, okay, what did I do wrong? Like, was there a way out? Was there a way I can improve in that matchup? Did I make a quote unquote misplay? Was I just missing a piece to go off? Things like that. And I think in this format too, a lot of decks are literally just gonna be one turn from winning, right? Like a Gabubon versus a Jesmon or versus an Agubon, like they're literally one turn from winning. And that's when you kind of have to decide if you're the opponent, like, okay, my opponent's gonna win next turn. Is there a way for me to win before they do? You know, I think thinking about that, if how can things move differently at some point later in the game, win or lose, how you can adjust your play style or your deck build ratio from there. Um, I think at this point too, for me, I think if I lose, I lose. I mean, I just want to know that I was able to play the best game I could have at the time, right? And then you can kind of think and reflect and see, was there a way that you could have played better in a sense? Everyone takes their losses differently. I just think at the end of the day, don't let it hurt you too much because at the end of the day, we are all lucky and blessed to play just a nice game.
Well put and well said. Do you have any other closing thoughts or pieces of advice that you want to give that you think players should take to heart or to look into?
Yeah, honestly, play often if you can. Play something different if you want. Try new ideas. Doesn't hurt. Trial and error is the best thing because that's how you discover, maybe something that is gravitates towards you personally, where you actually like playing the deck. Get creative. Play against people. Play against anybody, honestly. Play against people just so you can learn from different strategies, different styles. In my opinion, anybody can win in this game. It's just some people are a little luckier one day than the other, but overall, this game is not like other games where it's like, I mean, some decks are a little faster than others, but overall, any deck can technically win as long as you're trying to play. And anyone has their day. It's not like you can just, you just be like, all right, my deck's an auto win. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Any deck can win. Just depends on what kind of style you play, what deck you're playing, what the ratios are. I think just being open and just being willing to take constructive criticism and feedback is super important as well. So, I mean, you don't have to listen fully, but at least being aware of like, oh, maybe that person had a point, right? I think that helps people grow.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. So, once again, thank you, Dan Vang, for allowing me to take time out of your busy schedule to conduct this little interview. I hope everyone finds this to be as insightful as I did, and I hope some of you take this to heart to try to actually figure out what you're doing and to improve upon what you could be doing versus what you are doing. So, any other thoughts, Dan?
No, I just want to say thank you for, allowing me to be on your stream. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Zenitsu's channel. And if people, want to play or message me, feel free. Um, Join the Guy Force Gaming Discord.
All right. Once again, thank you, and thank you all for watching. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.